and David Masserang on February 10th. Happy birthday to all of you. Spouses' birthdays, Rodney Morales' wife, Andrea, on February 11th. And then club anniversaries, Elizabeth McFarland, 6 years on February 6th. And I think it's supposed to be me, Jeff Cartledge, 4 years, February 10th.
Salute.
Salute.
That is totally my fault. I was telling everyone earlier that I am very tired these days, and I have been making very silly mistakes, and so that's at least one of them for today. So
it doesn't get any easier when you get older, Georgianne.
Thanks, Jeff.
And I knew because I reviewed the agenda that you'd sent out, so I was like, wait, oh, that's my 4 year. That looks weird.
Well, and it's funny, a lot of times when we do the milestones, that the person reading it, it seems like always is in there. So we're very happy to wish you a happy anniversary, Jeff. Thanks.
Whoever made that comment about getting older, I'll look forward to doing that.
Well, we know you're always going to be young, Ron.
That's right. All right. This is our time to do introductions. Does anyone have a guest that they have brought with them today that they would like to introduce?
I do, Georgianne, and fellow Rotarians. I'm pleased to introduce two wonderful people from the Samaritan Center, Jenny Daniels Freese and Josie Geck. If you'd each wave to or say something, say hello to everybody real quick. They're going to be able to give their little short presentation today about receiving the check from us too, as beneficiaries of the Field of Honor.
Thank you very much for having us. We're very excited to be here today.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome.
Also, Georgianne, we invited Carol Powell from the Rock Center to join us. Carol, did you get a chance to dial in? Sure, you know, she told me when I spoke with her that her schedule is wild. She would try to get here. She may join us later. We'll see.
All right.
We've also invited Tommy Hall to join us, who has been a Rotarian and is looking at our club. Tommy, were you able to connect today? I don't see him, but I'll follow up with him as well. That's all I had, Georgianne. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, George. Yeah, I know Tommy was with us last week. Do we have any other introductions? And do we have any visiting Rotarians? I know I saw Carolyn earlier, so I'm going to wave.
I'm waving if that's all I need to do.
All right. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. All right, we're going to do recognitions and announcements. And the first thing we're going to do today for our announcements and work of the club is to have an election. And Nathan Winstead is our president-elect, and therefore he served as the nominations chair for the 2021-2022 year, which is in Rotary years. Our Rotary years end on June 30th and start on July 1st. So the officers who will serve under Nathan as president will serve starting July 1st. So Nathan, would you like to present your nominations?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Georgianne. In front of you, fellow Rotarians, we have all of the names of parties interested in serving on the board, and I've had lots of conversations with all of these individuals and their interest to serve. Excited about the coming year, and so I'll just quickly read them off. President-elect Kathleen Phelps, President nominee Jeff Cartledge, Treasurer Gary Brown, Secretary Marissa Austin, immediate past President Georgianne Hewitt, Rotary Foundation Chair Randy Mongold, Service Projects Roger Chappell, Club Administration Myra Page, Public Relations Allison McKee, Membership George Oliver, Golf Tournament Jeff Cartledge, Sergeant at Arms Dennis Pepin, Trumpet Editor Barbara Garland, Vice President of Fundraising, Jeannie Cox, and Youth Services, Danny Swafford. So that is our slate for the 21-22 Rotary year.
Thank you, Nathan. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to elect this slate of officers.
So
Or-
moved.
that was Ron Garland, I believe.
Mhm.
I'll
Yes.
second. I'll
And-
second.
Thank you. And Ron Swain has seconded. So this is where Rotarians, if you are a member of our club, if you would unmute, I'm going to go ahead and do a voice vote. So all in favor of this slate of nominees for the 2021-2022 Board of Directors, please say aye.
Aye.
And do we have any nays? The motion passes. Congratulations to the incoming board of the Rotary Club of Georgetown. Thank you all very, very much.
Georgianne,
Yes,
is Joanne doing the minutes on that?
yes, and we are recording as well.
Okay,
I don't know if Joanne, you may, you can write that down, but I also have the recording.
okay, because we'll need that for bank purposes.
Very good. Thank you, Carol, very, very much. All right, so the next thing I just wanted to mention real quick, we are receiving some lovely notes from some of the beneficiaries of both our service projects and our Field of Honor beneficiaries and our Christmas fundraising and program that we did. I've shown a few examples here. We received a letter from Pet Partners. We received a letter from ROC, Right on Center for Kids, and we also received a letter from the Texas Children's Home, and so the Texas Baptist Children's Home. And Jeannie this week also went to ROC and presented a check for $8,800. That is the amount that our 3 Field of Honor beneficiaries received this year. And so we are continue to receive these, and I'm going to put them in an attachment in next week's Rotary Weekly. So you'll get to see those wonderful notes of thanks and know what all of your hard work and fundraising has contributed to. And speaking of beneficiaries, Jeannie, I'm going to invite you to introduce our friends from the Samaritan Center. They are one of the 3 beneficiaries that the Field of Honor flag sales went to, and we're going to give them a few minutes to share a little bit about what they do.
It is truly my pleasure, Georgianne and fellow Rotarians, to introduce Jenny Daniels-Freese and Josie Geck to tell us a little bit about the Samaritan Center. They weren't able to be on the call last week, but fortunately, Georgianne gave us a few minutes to be able to catch up and hear from this wonderful organization. So Jenny, if you'll start, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. And I also want to thank Elizabeth McFarland. She is a board member for the Samaritan Center. At Samaritan Center, we heal hearts, provide hope, and enhance lives with a holistic approach to mental health for all ages, the whole community and the military community. And we're so delighted to say that we served over 1,000 vets and their military families in the last year. We had 4,400 hours of treatment, including counseling, integrative medicine services for those experiencing trauma. And what you may be interested in is our Hope for Heroes program. That is our military services program. About half of our work is with veterans. And in Georgetown and in Williamson County, we served over 100 veterans in the last year alone. The Hope for Heroes program was founded at Samaritan Center in 2007 to provide care, counseling, and peer support for veterans, their spouses, their children, their parents, and their families, and active duty military as well. And we're so proud to say that in 2020, we opened it up to first responders too. We have a number of partners in the community, and we're very proud of our partnership with ROC. So we're very excited that they also share in as beneficiaries of the Field of Honor. And we're so proud to be beneficiaries of this program. In 2020, our peer support program served 470 veterans, and our peer support program is one-on-one with veterans helping veterans. And this is really important because there are some folks that would rather not seek counseling, but they'd rather talk to a veteran one-on-one. And that's particularly important to us at Samaritan Center. And that program is a statewide program, although it used to be housed entirely at Samaritan Center until about 2014. We offer an affordable sliding scale for all, and one of our missions is to be able to serve the low-income community. And we do that through sliding scale. We offer a lot of free services as well. In fact, for veterans, we offer up to 6 sessions for free, and that includes integrative medicine as well. And we are just so proud of our teletherapy this year. During COVID, it was very challenging. We're normally an in-person organization, but we pivoted right away. Within 1 day, all of our staff were able to see everyone through telehealth, and we just couldn't be prouder of our staff. I want to thank you very much for having us here today. And if you have any questions about Samaritan Center, Josie and I are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. We are honored to be able to provide some support to Samaritan Center. I can't think of a year when this kind of counseling and support has been more important. So thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis, our Sergeant in Arms, do you want to check in with everybody and see if anybody has some happy news?
Well, sure. I hope next week to be able to make a contribution to the Happy Dollar Fund because I expect to get my second shot. So I'm going to focus on that this week. Is there anybody out there who wants to dig deep into your pocket who's already received 2 vaccinations? Nobody's received 2 vaccinations, or you're just holding out?
I have Nick Leschke.
Nick, you've had 2 of them. All right, I've got to find the list of ballerinas or
I just want to know how you guys scored that. We're both 1Bs and we haven't even heard from them.
Sorry, it's because of the healthcare. I work in the healthcare industry.
Nick, spell your last name. You're not on my list.
Sure, L-E-S-C-H-K-E.
All right. All right.
Dennis, I got my first shot. This is Jim Deucer.
I'm sorry. I'm taking 2 shots only this week. When you get your second, I'm going to pick your pocket.
Okay.
Because I've had my first shot too. Okay. Anybody else out there got some happy dollars?
I have one. Our son Kevin's moving from Illinois to San Antonio, and we're very happy. After 18 years, I finally have the whole family in Texas. That's good for 5.
5 big ones. I got you marked.
Right.
Yeah, I've got one, Dennis. Yeah, I've got a happy dollar that I don't live in the Northeast New York or Chicago right now, or my hometown area in Nebraska. It's going to be 5 to 8 below at night next week. So,
okay.
Dennis, I also will do 5. I think I mentioned last week that Chris Walker's son and wife were still in the hospital after his newborn he was in the NICU, and they are all home now. And so marvelous news, our fellow Rotarian, Chris Walker.
And this is Vicki, I'll do $5 because my grandchild that we don't know what it is in utero still, but is now the size of a pineapple.
Ah.
Love
All right.
Pineapple.
We got room for one more. Who's holding out there? Dead silence. Okay, we're looking forward to second shots.
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay, later.
As a reminder, and for those of you who are visiting today, these dollars go to our polio pig. As you know, Rotary International has long worked to eradicate polio, and $2 provides a vaccination to children in the world, and we are this close to eradicating polio, so we continue to raise dollars for that cause. All right, real quick reminder, we have a Rotary Social Tuesday, February 9th. That's next Tuesday from 5:30 to 7 p.m. It is going to be a virtual social, and the link is in your Rotary Weekly, but Allison McKee, who's not here today, she's has a work meeting today during lunch, but she is going to send a reminder email with the link, and we have a Mardi Gras theme, so you can dress up. I'm going to go look for my beads, and we'll use that time to just have some good fellowship. So please join if you can. And now I'm going to ask Barbara Garland to introduce our program.
Thank you, Georgianne. I had not met Paulette, but I've heard a lot about her over the years, and I had a delightful conversation with her last week as we talked about this program. She is a retired educator, was born and raised in Georgetown, and actually was in the last graduating class in Georgetown that was segregated. So she's seen a lot of Georgetown history. Currently, she's the president of the Georgetown Cultural Citizen Memorial Association, and the mission of that association is to educate, preserve, and celebrate African American history here in Georgetown. She's a lady with a servant heart. She is very active in making sure that we understand the contributions of African Americans here. And I'm very proud to introduce her today as she speaks on the Black family.
And I'm going to stop sharing so that we can, I think I'm going to stop sharing so we can let Paulette just be on our screen. And sorry, you guys, I'm having a little bit of trouble with my mouse. That is weird. Give me just a second. There's something weird about my mouse. There we go. I apologize. Miss Paulette, I am going to pin you so everybody can see you, and you are on.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
I think I've unmuted, yes. Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. Of course, my preference would have been to have a face-to-face conversation where we could talk about the I remember whens, or did you know that happened in Georgetown? I first want to give recognition to some longtime friends that I haven't seen until now. Tim and Angie Harris and Georgianne Hewitt. Of course, Ron Swain and I are friends, but when I saw Angie and Tim, I just had to say hello to my longtime friends. I also want to give recognition to probably about 20 years or so ago, when the Rotary Club, and I think it might have been during the Partner in Education days, when we hosted tutorials at the Willie Hall Center, one of our facilities. But I want to give recognition to that time when Rotary provided needed things for our Willie Hall Center, which supported families. I don't recall the exact date. As a native of Georgetown, I recall many situations. I guess when the population of Georgetown was 5,218. And I experienced a transition from early segregation to now. But through it all, the family, church, home, and school were the foundations that propelled us forward, not because of our circumstances, but in spite of them. As president of the longstanding organization, we refer ourselves to as GCCMA. Georgetown, this organization was organized about 1975, hosting, and this is just a bit of overall information for some of you who don't know. Because we've sat in the hub of this community with a lot of unknown history about us. Georgetown has celebrated Juneteenth since 1952. We've had about 39, I think our last Black History banquet held last year at Southwestern University. We have a rich heritage, and of course our vision, being recognized as leaders and key resource for promoting our rich and varied heritage, providing programs such as this to our youth and all citizens of Georgetown. The month of Black History has been around since 1926, when Dr. Carter Woodson started a recognition week of history that evolved into a month by a national organization, ASALH, Association for the Study of African American Life and History. The month provided more for recognition and occasions like this one to tell our stories that are reflective of our past and continued struggles and highlight our successes. The 2021 theme, The Black Family, Representation, Identity, and Diversity, returns us to its roots with a new focus that many might not understand, but know it exists. And because of its existence, many have turned a deaf ear and have been blinded by the realistic life and struggles families have faced and continue struggling right here in Georgetown in so many categories: affordable housing, online education, basic family provisions, even the preservation of 50-year-old homes maintained by older senior citizens, while viewing the building of a $500,000 house in their neighborhood. The question becomes, how do we address it, and what favorable results will come from it? Preserving the family is key. Representation often means being a voice for the strong and voiceless, marching for solidarity, singing, "We shall overcome," over and over, not reaching the mountaintop of fairness and justice, but a steady climb toward it. We march on until those who see me can look beyond the color of my skin and see the content of my character to represent. It seems that we're always in a battle and always struggling. This word identity looks quite different from my era growing up in Georgetown, because now we have young educated millennials who look at this city and say, where do I fit? I've got a master's degree in accounting or education, but my hometown will not make room for my gift. The city has not always embraced African-American businesses, nor has it been very inviting to vendors of color during its festivals and other events. So they asked Paulette, where do I fit? These young minds sometimes want to come home and join others to help unify and bring us together in spite of our own agendas. We must identify and make room for their gifts. Diversity can be a collaboration of, and I think I spoke to the new president at Southwestern when I said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could have a collaboration of the school, the city, community, the university, coming together to solve some of our community issues that affect us all, like education, affordable housing. The youth tell me, or at least they come up with a new term now, people are becoming zombies. A new term, all day in front of a computer. Now we must be careful how we express diversity so that we are equal. Equal might put us on the same playing field, but equity makes the situation more individualized according to the need. We've all said, let's be equal, but equity steps in right now. Family foundations have been severed from one generation to the next. These families have struggled from slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, equality, poverty, inequity, and up pops gentrification. Well, what is that? That wasn't a term that we used when I grew up, but it indicated families being replaced, like my relatives in East Austin. In the early days of the 50s, I recall, those same families were expected to always remain in their identified neighborhoods, restaurants, and schools. Most cities' minorities live somewhere near the railroad track. We did in Georgetown. But greed became a factor. Now the grass has become greener on both sides, where today building contractors have found a way to maneuver across the track and slowly find ways to gain properties with constant manipulative tactics that have resulted in families being relocated. This dates back to the Great Migration during World War I, when job opportunities, better education, and modern facilities were available for African Americans in the industrialized North. Many said, here, why stay here? Working from sunup to sundown for meager wages, for hard labor, domestic labor, pulling cotton for 75 cents. It was the employment for many. Our organization did a reenactment at the Shotgun House during the 2019 Black History Month. The Black migration was the theme. And it made us realize why so many, it made me realize why so many of my relatives left Georgetown for Kansas and California and other states. This diminished and broke up families, sometimes leaving mothers to be head of household. Yet decades later, friends were trying to get me to move to other states. They would say, Paulette, move where you can be more productive and accepted. Yet I chose to be productive and active at home. What's expressed here is what I have lived, along with lessons from older generations who passed on but left a torch of legacy and resilience, who would echo, you give out, but you don't give up. Within our community stands Wesley Chapel, AME Church on 4th Street. And I don't know if any one of you have driven through the west part of town, but that church has stood there since 1869. Following Abraham Lincoln's signing just 6 years after Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This historic building should have monumental attention from all historic preservation groups in Georgetown. The church is not representing Black history, but Georgetown and Texas history. If those walls could speak, those walls of Wesley, what great information we could gather. Another church on MLK, which was former Timber Street, structured massive, and I wished I had the capabilities of giving you a PowerPoint, because you would be in awe of these great big structures that were demolished. In the shotgun house, when you visit, you will see how they looked. Macedonia was organized in 1881 in a backyard after they bought land for $20. Now, I just had to bring this in. Coincidentally, this was a few months before the gunfight at OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona. I'm a Western fan. And I found it fascinating when historic events sort of align themselves with historical moments that we share. Our shotgun house on West Street, built between the 20s and 30s, gives way to family pride with identifying the only memorabilia of our school and items that remind us of the hard times and struggles, with a lot of unknown history, where our school was demolished and all of its contents, cumulative records, UIL trophies, everything was gone. And yet, one of my members in the organization says, you know, I remember this house, referring to the shotgun house. My family of 5 lived in this 3-room house. History all around us. And I hope when times are better, and we don't have to talk about the pandemic, some of you will bring your families so that you can reminisce the past. This is probably the only place in Georgetown where some memorabilia of Black community and history is housed. I think I've seen a few pictures have been seen in Southwestern University's special collection facility, an aerial view of my school and Macedonia Church. When asked about the state of their family, I get all kind of responses. I got this response. We have 2 Georgetowns, the haves and the have-nots. And like the pandemic, they felt their people were the first to get the virus, but are becoming the last to receive the vaccine, and are now in the middle of a chaotic unscheduling dilemma to receive a vaccine. I was so elated when I recently found a document that showed small African businesses that existed on Martin Luther King Street, which was with Timber Street. There were houses, meat markets, rooming houses, barbershops. And I wondered, how did they all disappear? Beautiful big houses with big white columns that were replaced by urban renewal projects. In the 50s, longtime Georgetown educator, Professor S.C. Marshall, for whom the Georgetown School was named, at one time it was Marshall Carver, became a very prominent citizen, helping families become very conscientious of fairness and equality. However, he and his wife's teaching contracts were not renewed because they were propelling people to become stronger. This is not hearsay. If you want to see this and read more, Dr. Marcia Farney dissertation on the Black schools from 1866 to 1966 is where I got my information, at the public library. And so with Professor Marshall, the demise of part of that strong leadership that the family had was declining. Yet families endured by strong faith and strong church leaders. The church has always been a source of strength and resilience. Which reminds me, I forgot to refer to I do a daily word every day. And I flipped over my daily word before while I was having coffee, and it said active. It scared me at first. I said, okay, Lord. I use my gifts to direct my life. I have landline phone too. I move into action by first taking stock of my intuitive guidance so that my every action is spiritually directed. What is mine to do? Today, many families, all races in Georgetown, continue with low-income housing, the same old worries that the $600,000 homes will affect their taxes. And so the struggles continue. Accessibility to the underserved is a vast problem in our city. In order for the city to shine and be placed on the map as exceptional and inclusive, it will have to sometimes leave its comfort boat and step in the murky waters of the downtrodden, low income, and jobless. Got to get your feet wet. John Newton's Amazing Grace declares, I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. And because I now see, I get a little emotional. I must serve to show the next generation the torch that they must carry. Not only for equality, which treats everybody the same, but equity that meets the need of each group in spite of where they live. I say to myself in this season of my life, this is another day. Oh Lord, I know not what it will bring forth, but make me ready for whatever it may be. If I'm to stand up, help me to stand bravely. If I'm to sit still, help me to sit quietly. If I'm to lie down, help me to do it patiently. And if I'm to do nothing, help me to do it gallantly. Recently passed actress and icon Cicely Tyson said, challenges make you discover things about yourself that you never really knew. And every day is a challenge, unlike the day before, especially when you live 7 decades. While I remind myself through all the talks and interviews I've done, Maya Angelou quotes and reminds me, people will forget what you said. They'll forget what you did, but not forget how you made them feel. I make reference to my teaching days, long before schools were oh gosh, I'm talking too long before breakfast was served. And I said to my principal, if you pass by my room and you see my children eating, I would bring crackers. It's because I cannot teach on empty stomachs. Making a difference in someone's life reminds me of, I call it epiphany. Recently, when I read Bob Brent's letter in the paper, and I will try to bring this to a close. Bob Brent's letter, when he acknowledged the former GISD program, which I loved, PI, I was part of that, Partner in Education. Bob said, we need to get back to mentoring and tutoring our kids. This would help the families. See, that was a fantastic program. Gethsemane, Willie Hall, First United Methodist Church, Boys and Girls Club, all over. Sun City retired teach educators, parents, university, all were involved. And of course, we can't create that kind of a scenario because of the pandemic. Many decades have come and gone. So each morning we must empty yesterday's guilt of what we didn't accomplish and continue serving with humility for all of our community. Change is inevitable. I'm just here to work while I have day. For my night will come one day and I can't work. I won't be able to work. So let us remain steadfast, encouraged, seizing the opportunity to continue making a difference in Georgetown, to have a more unified community. Thank you. Georgiana, I don't know if I have time, but we do have upcoming events starting tomorrow. Do I have time to mention those?
You absolutely do. And the other thing, Ms. Paulette, that I would invite you, we'll take a question or two, and then if you don't have to be somewhere right away and you want to stay, we'd love to have you stay, and anybody who can hang on can ask additional questions.
Oh, wonderful. I was wondering whether there'd be some sort of a Q&A, because I love those.
Yeah, I would love that too. And I know, because I want you to tell them about the mural at the Shotgun House. And so why don't you tell us about the upcoming events that GCCMA is hosting for Black History Month?
Okay. Well, in lieu of a banquet, which we normally would be having, we have chosen to move forward with a virtual, I'm trying to get it now, with some virtual activities. On February 6th, which is tomorrow at 11 o'clock, there'll be a collaborating with Williamson Museum, will be the Georgetown Police Department, Georgetown Police Officer Delta Jolly reading her book, Officer Jolly Earns Her Badge. And what we've done, we've distributed several books to kids, and we've asked families to sign up and go to the GCCMATX.org just to be a part of that. So she's going to be doing that. Secondly, on February 13th, Marjorie Anderson will discuss and give advice to teens, the key from her book, The Key Money Choices for Teens. We ask you to join at 11 o'clock for that event. And finally, on February 25th, Dr. Ron Swain will host a community conversation about reconciliation and the present realities of racial tension. That's on a Thursday. What we've done is try to divide these into a K-5 for young children, something for teens and young adults, and then something for older adults concerning the realities of racial tension. So we are, and in addition, I think on February 10th, a Black History display at the Williamson Museum will showcase Black families throughout Williamson County and their legacy. And I'm proud to say one family here, the Millers, who've celebrated 5 generations and had over 50 reunions, will be one of those families. Those are my announcements.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paulette. We have time for a question. Does anybody have a question they would like to ask?
Georgianne, I don't have a question, but I just want to compliment Mrs. Taylor. She mentioned that she's been on what I would call the battlefield, and this is heart work, H-E-A-R-T. She has a family of her own, sons and their families, and she's a grandmother. And so she's not only in the community, but she's also at home. She's a delightful cook, and she's always cooking up some good, delicious meals. So if you don't know Mrs. Taylor, when this pandemic is over and we can go back over to the Shotgun House, I strongly encourage each and every one of you to come out and learn more about the African American experience here in Georgetown and some of the artifacts over at the Shotgun House on West Street behind the City Hall, adjacent to the City Hall, right downtown. Thank you so much, Paulette.
Georgianne, I do want to mention, you mentioned the mural. We're so proud of the arts and cultural. I think that's Amanda Steele who hosted that. But we are hoping in the future that we can get a kiosk there that will tell the story. It's one thing to look and see this mural and see this woman, Mary Bailey, and not know about her. There's abstract art done by Norma Clark. She was a graduate of Southwestern University, my cousin, and Devin Clarkson, who did the mural. But there's a story behind all of those pictures, and we hope that we will be able to share that story with you. That's right behind the City Hall and the Shotgun House.
It's very impressive. And Ron is right. The Shotgun House and the mural, and really anytime you have the opportunity to hear Miss Paulette talk about the history of Georgetown, I promise you will learn something. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing. There are lots of little love notes in the chat for you. So I'm going to close out our meeting, but I do welcome everyone to stay should you want to have a little further conversation. Here's a quick look at our calendar for the week ahead. Again, I want to remind you that we have our Rotary Social on Tuesday, and then we have our Racial Unity Committee. We've got Rotary meetings. We've got our club board meeting on the 19th. And then for those of you who have helped with ramp builds in the past or would like to help with a ramp build, we have one of those scheduled for February 27th. And now we're going to have our Minute for Peace. And I believe Jim Deucer is reading our quote today.
Thank you, Georgianne. Our quote for today is from Eleanor Roosevelt.
Sorry.
And it isn't enough to talk about peace. One must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it. One must work at it.
Thank you, Jim, very, very much. And do we have any announcements for the good of Rotary? Hearing none, I would ask that you all join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First,
is it the truth?
Second,
is it fair to all concerned?
Third,
will it build goodwill and better friendship?
And fourth,
will it be beneficial to all concerned?
We are adjourned. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll put us in gallery view, and you can ask Ms. Paulette questions, or if anybody has anything else, comments they want to say, share.
Ms. Paulette, can you expound on one of the things you talked about, the difference between being equal and equity?
Well, recently, I know GISD is working with Cynthia Pike is what brought that to mind, because I know the school system is trying to come up with an equity program. And then that's where I just sort of skimmed over, equal. And then there's an illustration where all of the containers that the three kids looking over the fence, they're equal. But the shortest guy can't see over the fence. The middle guy can barely see, and only the taller guy. Yet when two boxes are placed, the shortest guy can see to accommodate the need. So, and then of course the tallest guy didn't even need a box. We've always uttered equality, equal. But within the realms of equality, we wanted to make sure that you're meeting the needs of those that are equal. And it's kind of a new term, and based on Cynthia Pike's presentation and looking at some of the literature, that's where I got it from.
Well, that's excellent. I would just, I really wanted to hear more about it, and that's great because it seems to make a lot of sense. I mean, it's like not just equal, but equal opportunities.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, we're not just, we are equal, but we don't always have the same opportunities, and trying to help out those who don't have the same opportunity get that opportunity is a real important thing.
And George, if I may jump in, that's an excellent question, and I think Paulette has responded well. But I've seen another illustration similar to what Paulette described, where one of the youngsters is actually in a wheelchair. So the box won't do that youngster any good at all. They need a different kind of accommodation in order for them to be able to access whatever is on the other side of the fence. So we have to look at, as Paulette is saying, look at the needs of the individuals, and I think that's where we're hoping to head within our school district. When we look at the district and see, and I don't want to take over this, but and I could talk about it for a while. When we see that almost 50% of the student population are Hispanic, Latino, and African American. And then we look at the staff, the teaching, and the principals, and over 80% of them are white. You know, where do these students of color get their role models? Where are the Paulette Taylors in our district? I know we have, you know, Miss Easter over at Eastview High School as a principal, but to my knowledge, she's the only principal. So what if a youngster says, well, when I grow up, I want to become a principal like Dr. Marshall? You know, where do they get their inspiration and insight? So we've got to see, yeah, that they have those models and those opportunities.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Taylor.
Other questions?
Not so much a question as a comment. Paulette, you and I grew up in the same town. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I didn't recognize you.
Well, I'm changing. We grew up in the same town, but you know, your experiences were significantly different than mine. And so I always love to hear you talk because you're opening up a world in my town that I don't know about and that I'm trying to learn more about. And one of the things that occurred to me during your talk was the impact of urban renewal in the late 60s and into the 70s. And I know that it brought enormous improvements in the sense that I remember the streets weren't paved over on the west side of the railroad tracks, and the housing was not nearly as nice as it is now. But also I wonder if there were some downsides in the sense that you might be able to comment on.
Well, it took a long time. The street, I can recall my husband carrying me across the street because the streets were so muddy. And it was like they didn't have a timeline to complete. And they took their time. Of course, afterwards, the paved streets, we appreciated. The replacing people and the shuffling people, my family had to stay in a mobile home right there where David Collision. They had mobile homes, 2 mobile homes, while they replaced the street. It was quite cumbersome. It was a lot of work, a lot of effort. A lot of the homes that they rebuilt weren't as nice as the ones they tore down. One particular house behind, and you would remember this, Judge, Belford Lumber Company right there on the corner of 8th and West Street. Big, beautiful house with big columns. They tore it down. It was replaced. So a lot of the houses they replaced weren't as suitable and acceptable as the others.
That's an example of something that you know that I don't know, and I was totally unaware of what you're talking about, and the loss of Black businesses was something else that struck me. But as always, it's marvelous to hear you talk, and I'd love for us to be able to get together in person one day soon and trade stories.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's what Donna Josie and I did. Linda Scarver's sister, who did a pictorial book, illustrations of Georgetown now and then, and she acknowledged me because I was telling her what was what and where Troy Laundry was, where the sheriff department, all of those kinds of things. Thank you. Oh, by the way, Judge, what year did you graduate high school?
I graduated in '67, and that meant that in my, I believe it's my junior year, that we integrated, and they drug their feet from Brown v. Board of Education for another 13 years. Well, no, not 13. 54 to 66, 12, I guess. And finally, the federal judge down in Austin, who was a protege of Lyndon Johnson, just said, he was talking to the board, and he said, fellas, I might be sympathetic to your conundrum here, but the Fifth Circuit just not going to allow me to give you any more time. You need to do it. And we all know that the political atmosphere that existed then, and the people that tried to hold back that movement, and the people that supported it. Say a special word to Doug Benold and his cohorts who stood up for the law and got us integrated. And it was rather peaceful. Is that your impression?
Well, there were a lot of stories. Doug Benold and Carl Daring both on my diploma, and I recently got a story about when the FBI came to Georgetown and canceled a school board meeting.
I did not know that. That would be
that's
another story.
I got that story from Carl Daring.
Very good, very good. Love to hear that.
Are there others?
Paulette, I just want to say thank you for being our program today. We haven't been in Georgetown for that long, since 2009, and I learned a lot of history that I didn't know, and it inspires me to learn even more. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
There's a really wonderful story, and Paulette's right about when we come together as a community, we can create both equality and equity. And when the schools were segregated, Paulette knows this story much better than I do, but I think it's interesting to note, and would love for our Rotary Club to hear the full story at some point, that back in 1946, 47, some Southwestern students recognized that with the schools being segregated, that children in the schools, the Black schools did not have music programs and the white schools did. And so these Southwestern students and faculty joined together with First United Methodist Church and the Carver School and began to teach music lessons at the church. And if you ever walk by the corner of First United Methodist Church, there is a historical plaque that tells the story of the Negro School of Fine Arts. But that was one of the great stories about Georgetown history that Paulette introduced me to that I did not know about. And I was really proud of our community. I didn't come to Georgetown until 1986 as a student at Southwestern, but I was really proud of that history and those institutions that came together to try to provide some equality and equity.
Georgianne, this is a 1957. This is a 1957 picture of that class standing in front of First United Methodist Church, which was headed by Dr. Iola Bowden Chambers, whom I loved. And this was a time during segregation when we were bused across town to take music. Hats off to First United Methodist Church. We never heard any kind of distasteful criticism. We were allowed to take music there. I took piano for 6-7 years. And the recital was the highlight of Georgetown. Some were at Southwestern, but that was the highlight that gave families so much pride. And I will tell that story one day too, but while we were bused across town and receive those lessons, and we have a sense of gratitude for First United Methodist.
And that story, if I'm not mistaken, was told by Dr. Martha Allen, who is a teacher that both Georgianne and I had at Southwestern can't remember the adjective, but it's something gift.
The gracious gift. I named it.
There you are.
She asked me, Paulette, if you had a name for this. I said, it was such a gift. It was a gracious gift. She said, that's what it will be called. So Martha went from church to church, home to home, to gather all of that information that she put in that book. And I have several copies in the Shotgun House that you will see when you visit.
Miss Taylor, did at Southwestern University, did it facilitate the times as you and we're bringing the different communities together? Did the presence of a young or an old university here actually facilitate a lot of what was trying to be accomplished at that time and presently?
So much. Bill Jones, Dr. William Jones, the Campbells, Dr. Campbells, the Osbornes, all of those old names. And what was her name? Her husband was Clifford.
Yeah.
Clifford.
Clifford.
Doris Clifford. Well, Dr. Clifford, his wife was Doris. But all of those people, and they had a group name. They fought. They went to the school boards and said, we've got to stop spending money on segregated schools. They formed a group and fought in support of integration. They came to the West Side at the Mary Bailey Center, which was a barrack building left after Carver, and taught speech. They bonded together and gave, this is why I made the statement, with all that talented and professional intellectual knowledge, they came together to support the community. it was awesome. Just like Dr. Chambers did, Iola Bowden Chambers did. And what's her name? Come on, Jordan. Nettie Ruth Bratton, my dear friend. I just sent her a note out at the West. Nettie Ruth. So yes, to answer your question, they were a strong group in support. Dr. Spellman, that's who I was trying to think of, Spellman.
Norman Spellman.
Norman Spellman. We had a panel discussion and he was there.
Well, for the record, I lived in mortal fear of Martha Allen. She was a tough dean of women, so let me tell you.
Dr. Douglas, if I might interject, the school, the Negro School of Fine Arts, produced several outstanding students along with Mrs. Taylor. One of them was Ernest Clark. Ernest Clark was the first African American to enroll in Southwestern as a full-time student in 1965, I believe it was, Georgianne, 64 or 65. So while faculty members of the university composed this committee that Mrs. Taylor just spoke about, a committee for better schools, I believe was the name that it was called. The university itself was a long time in opening its doors to full-time African-American students. And Ernest Clark graduated in 4 years at 1969 and went on to teach music in the Dallas area. He retired from there. And just recently, last year, the university trustees named one of their residence halls in his honor, the Ernest Clark Residence Hall.
I want to comment, my relationship with Paulette goes all the way back to the Georgetown project. She was such a rich resource for that organization then, and I'm sure still is. Paulette, a number of people in this Rotary Club have served on that board and know fully the work of that. But just a reminder to all of us, the Georgetown project is grounded in the philosophy that all children should have equal access to life. And we talk about how are the children in Georgetown, and I know Ron has picked up on that theme and used it recently, but it's about making all kids winners. And Paulette is such an integral part of that movement in Georgetown. Congratulations, Paulette, and thank you. Thank you for sharing
Dee.
today.
When I heard your voice, I recognized you from the past.
Well, I think we should do this again sometime.
Yes. There's another story to tell.
Yes, there is.
I think we should have coffee with Paulette sometime.
I think that sounds good, Ron.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you, everybody, and enjoy the weekend, and go take advantage of some of these wonderful events that GCCMA has planned for Black History Month.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Paulette. See ya.
Bye-bye.